Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Check Service Industry Podcast, where we talk about all things service industry related and whatever else I feel like talking about. If you haven't yet, please go watch my television series Beyond the Check. Worker Owner Edition, now streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV. Tubi TV, it's free TV, and they're awesome chefs. Hey, if you're listening to this later, you could have listened to it live on Tastemade. So go follow us on Tastemade at Beyond the Check, and you can listen to a podcast recorded months before they're actually released. And you can ask my awesome guest questions. P.S. I have a fantastic guest today. He is the genius entrepreneur behind the Toronto street food brand Fidel Gastro's. He had his own food travel series as well, Rebel Without a Kitchen. He's written a couple cookbooks, Brunch Life, Street Food Diaries, and he's a super cool cat and an awesome dude. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Basile.
Wow, you nailed that. Not only did you nail that intro, you nailed that last name. Well done, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. Where are you right now?
I am in Toronto. I'm technically in Etobicoke, which is like a little side suburb just off of Toronto, just west of Toronto. But yeah, I'm in Toronto, Canada. It's freezing here. Where are you?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia. It's about 85 degrees outside today, I think.
Yeah, so it is not that here. It is, we're on record. We're 3 days away from breaking a 44-year record, just to get a little historical data in there for being the coldest spring in Toronto's history. So there's that. We got that going for us. But I love Savannah. I've been to Savannah once in my life, and I was blown away by it. It was one of those trips where we were driving from Florida back home to Toronto. Whenever I go down, my father-in-law has a house in South Florida, so we drive, bring the dog, stay for a while, but then we make trips on the way back. And I love the stops, right? It really just shows you a lot of character. And Savannah was probably, I guess it would have been the second last city I had seen prior to the world shutting down because of COVID.
Oh, really? So recently?
Yeah. So it was right before COVID. And what I loved about it is everything in Savannah is historical. I was afraid to walk on stairs because I was like, wait, are these show stairs? Are these real stairs? Like, what's going on?
I wasn't sure which stairs you were talking about because we actually have stairs of death as well, which are old-timey stairs. So I don't know if you made it down to River Street at all, but like
that was exactly. So it's where the boats are with the historic boat. Yeah. So it was there. I was just like, wow, this is.
There's actually a Facebook group called the Stone Stairs of Death, which is just about all the fucked up shit that happens in Savannah, right? But they literally named the Facebook page after those stairs because literally people die on those stairs.
I have no doubt because they are not symmetrical.
No, they were. I think they might have just been straight cut out of the side of the wall. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. But anyway, so love Savannah, great city. So thank you so much for having me.
I have not spent much time in Toronto. I think I was in the airport once, but
that's a shame because that's like the least enjoyable part about the whole city. It's actually a great city. People don't realize, when I say people, I mean like, when I'm in a North American landscape, how big the city of Toronto actually is. It's, I think, North America's fourth largest population. So it's right up there with Chicago, New York, Miami, and LA. It is absolutely massive.
Oh, it's a film mecca too for Canada, right?
Huge. It's not just a film mecca for Canada. It's now becoming, like, Netflix just moved a massive production facility here. There's a lot of production that happens in Toronto. And one of the main reasons why it's such an amazing food city is because there's literally an entire, planet's worth of culture available to you here. There's everything. It's the melting pot
of Canada.
Yeah, and so, like, that's the thing. When people say Canada is incredibly multicultural, I mean, yes and no, but there are cities within Canada that are incredibly multicultural, and we kind of wear the badge of the entire nation. And Toronto is definitely at the top of that list because I've traveled the world, and one of the benefits of coming from a city like Toronto is if you are adventurous in your style of cuisine that you like to go out and eat at, you can probably have it in Toronto first and then venture to some, I remember being in Indonesia having nasi goreng, and they were like, everyone thought for sure, first time I'd ever had it. I was like, no, I've been having it for years, So
in Toronto.
In Toronto, back home. So I remember coming back from that journey specifically. I had a chance to speak in front of Toronto City Council. This was 6 or 7 years ago, talking about food truck culture everywhere else and why we were just doing it wrong. And they were, one of the things that I think Toronto doesn't do a good job of, and when I say that, I mean administratively, is really showcasing our talent and what we offer. Because it's one of my, and I'm not just saying this because I'm from here, it's one of my favorite food cities.
I mean, now I have to come to Toronto ASAP. I'm gonna wait a month or two till it's warmer. I'm gonna wait
1,000%. I was you literally just, so we have this thing in Canada called the May 2-4 weekend.
Is that like the prime time?
Well, that usually signifies cottage season, and cottages. Now we're getting into deep Canadian history here. Cottages are summer houses, but basically it's when city people drive 2 hours north to get away from the city, and you just really enjoy the summer and you cook a lot and you're outdoors a lot. That usually starts
like the Hamptons. It's like the Hamptons.
It's like the Hamptons, exactly. Muskoka is to cuter. Toronto. Yeah, it's a cute little name, eh? Instead of summer house,
that seems a little pretentious. Cottage.
Yeah, you gotta have 2 houses. Yeah,
but one's a cottage, so it's not.
One's a cottage.
It's a cottage.
Yeah, cottage.
It's just,
not
it's like
a summer house.
It's like if we had a cabin, right?
Just like that. It's a cabin.
It's a cabin. Are they actually cabin-like, or are they more summer house-like?
They're like hybrids. They're usually quite large. Not always, but they're usually on water. That's what it's got to be on a body of water, and that's what kind of differentiates just a house up north and a cottage.
I'm hearkening back to the Dirty Dancing era for some reason.
Yeah, so that's like a commune more, but it's similar to that though, right? Where
people aren't foxtrotting up there anymore or anything like that.
No. They're taking their Audis.
That's fun. So a lot of, is that what got you into back in the day when you did the show? Was just the food trucks and just wanting to show off?
It's because I just wanted to show off. I got a whole show
Toronto, but the city,
Of course, it's actually so funny because season 1 of our show, and we're going back 7-8 years now, was all about Toronto. It was all about our city because I was building it. It's I did the same thing. Timing works, right? Mm-hmm. It was all about building my business at home in the city. And you could only do that by showcasing the city. It only made sense. It was very much a Toronto show. We featured everything to do with the city. Season 2 of the show was okay, well, thank you. And that was my life. So they were just we're going to follow you with a camera and a sound guy. And I just did my thing, and I was.
And had a lot of fun. It looked like you had a lot of fun.
You know what? I don't remember a lot of it. But it's true. I don't, because I was working. If you think about it, it's kind of like, when they say, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that I was going to be working 18-hour days. I didn't know that there was going to be, very emotional moments in my life and career caught on camera. I didn't know that just how big of an opportunity it was to have that captured audience. I was just doing my thing. I was 26, 27, just started
hey,
the
we're
company.
Gonna follow you around, dude. You cool with that?
They were like, yeah. I was like, cool. I didn't have an agent at the time, so I didn't understand contract. I was just like, yeah, come on, So it was a very different process. And then season 2 evolved from that. It was more about showcasing other cities that were really big into food, and then me bringing my style of food or the city style of food to those other cities and doing events. So for me, travel is it's my continuing education in food. There's no other way to explain how I get connected to places better than through their food. And that was kind of like one of the worst. I mean, there was a lot of horrible parts of COVID.
Travel's exhausting.
Exhausting. You know, but it's having travel taken away during the last 2 years was really tough because it really stunted my opportunities to learn. So I'm really excited because I've been able to start to get back into the swing of things. And I'm plotting a third cookbook right now, so I'm trying to see if to piggyback some more travel for that.
All right. Well, since you're getting back out, but while you were stuck home, just like on like maybe a silver lining note, did you find anything like introspectively or inspiring or new that was like forced upon you from being stuck home? And
yeah, I think it taught me to. No, but you know what? I don't care. I love tough questions. It taught me to slow down. I think because I was forced to slow down, and I think if anyone that knows me really well knows I'm an adamant workhorse. It is something that has just been ingrained in me at a very young age to outwork everyone around me, because that's how I personally feel, a sense of worth. Unfortunately, like I just always need to be hustling and working.
And when you're not doing something, you're like, what am I doing with my life?
Oh yeah, that was like constant modes of that. And there was parts of COVID where I was doing nothing, and then there was parts of COVID that I was working so hard that I had to ask myself why, because you start to prioritize certain things in your life, and you start to value things a little differently. And as you get older and over time, I've almost 11 years now, and by this I mean being a food entrepreneur, you really do have certain values at different parts of your trajectory, and those values are allowed to change as you kind of move through your timeline. Because now I just want to kind of work hard, but I want to work smarter. I want to make more project-based things happen versus just putting energy into an endless thing. And I'm a lot happier for it too, because I have some balance for the first time in my life.
You've slowed down, you've settled down, you've settled in.
Yeah, I think, and I'm happy about it too. At first, I wasn't sure how I was going to take to it. I thought it was going to be like, and who knows, maybe it'll only be a temporary moment in time, and then I'll go back to.
I mean, here we get a bit frisky in our late 50s, so.
Yeah, I'm not
Another
there
adventure
yet.
time. Adventure time.
I'm
again.
not there yet.
The golden year adventure time.
Yeah, right. I'm in my late 30s right now. I've been an entrepreneur since my mid 20s, so I feel like I've put in. They say like the whole 10,000 hours thing. I did that like in 2 weeks. I feel like so I've put in a lot of time. I really don't think experience means age. I think experience means like literal hours put into a craft and time put into a craft. So I did it. I fast tracked my experience levels.
I got a buddy who fast tracks his. He just didn't sleep for a couple of years and just fucking railed it out.
Yeah.
Now he owns bars, right?
There you go, right? Like the irony is, I love
the bars, but for 2 years he did nothing but just go, and then now he doesn't have to do anything. So,
well, it can be. This industry is one of the hardest industries, not just to make sense of the business part of it, but to then make sense of the life you're supposed to try and have outside of the business. And there's a reason why the failure rate in hospitality in general is so high. It's because I think a lot of people get into it and
they don't know what they're doing.
Included. And you learn as you go, hopefully. Otherwise, you fail pretty hard pretty quickly.
I think the majority, possibly the reason for the failure rate, is just the lack of knowledge about what they're getting into. People just want to open a restaurant. People who like to cook, just happen to have a little bit of money. Their family has some money. They're like, oh, cool, yeah, let's open you a restaurant.
Sure.
And they just, and they didn't watch Kitchen Nightmares. I don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Well, the irony is, it's like I'm kind of that person. I'm self-taught. I was someone who quit my job to start a food company. I couldn't open a restaurant, so I did it, the grassroots way. I was selling sandwiches off of tables illegally. Then we graduated to a food truck, from food truck to restaurant. And I still didn't know what I was doing. I remember opening up our restaurant and just the bills started coming in. And I was like, oh my God, is this
Brick and mortar.
always? Yeah, like, is this just today, or is this always going to look like this? It was a lot.
Yeah, but you got a whole bunch of little stair steps of learning in that process, right? So it wasn't like you just jumped in and were like, I made food at home and now I'm going to open a restaurant. You went out there, you sold sandwiches, you marketed yourself,
Totally.
You've got the food truck. Now you need people to come to your food truck. They need to know where your food truck is. Like that's almost sometimes harder than having a brick and mortar, or back in the day before, cell phones and, hey, I know where you're at all the time.
Right. Yeah. And, everything's a learning experience, right? And then hopefully you make enough mistakes at certain parts of your career that at some point you can be a professional at it. So I think I'm there. I don't know. Like, I feel like we're always learning, right? I think that is the entrepreneurial journey, or at least the mindset should always be to seek out more knowledge, because like once you're just doing things on autopilot, like I think that's good to a certain degree, but then it's hard to get inspired by that every day.
It is. Like without pressure, there's no reason to move forward, right? When life's just, it's just easy. And I find that happening a lot, where it's like, oh, right, so I guess that, haven't really thought of doing anything new because I don't have a reason to. I have no financial stress. I have there's nothing pushing me to like do more. So do you just go on vacation, or do you?
Yeah, you unplug for a bit. And again, like I think I've always been someone that needed to feel connected to his career. Like this was just always something that I couldn't just have a job that I went to during the day and then go home and be someone completely different. Like there had to be a connection between those two things. I was never motivated by grades as a kid going to school, but I was motivated by building something from scratch. And, at certain points in my career, I've made changes on the fly because I felt like things were just becoming a little too static and a little too uninspiring. And then, I don't know, at the end of the day, it's got to do like, I look at every project in a very, very simple kind of bucket system. It's either got to bring me joy, it's got to bring financial security, it's got to bring both, but it definitely can't bring neither of those things. And if someone presents something to me and it brings me neither, I'm just like, nope, I'm out. Like, not for me.
All right. That's a pretty simple way to look at it. It's kind of the same thing in like film. You can't have it. You can have it cheap, you can have it fast, or you can have it good, but you can't have all three.
Yeah. Right. So, and you have to, and I'm very transparent whenever I get into a meeting with people about a potential opportunity and project. And it's like, listen, just so you know, this isn't checking any of my boxes, but, or sometimes you get a unicorn that checks all the boxes. And then there's a reason why those ones just make more sense, because you're invested in it. You see a longevity in the idea. Other people gravitate towards it. So there's sometimes when something just feels right, it's hard to pinpoint it just clicks, and that's where I gravitate my energy now. This many years later, I look for those things and moments that click, and knowing full well that not everything will click.
So let's go way back in time. And so to the sandwiches.
Okay.
All right. So let's go back even further. What inspired you to want to cook? Who was the inspiration for the journey?
Yeah. So my family, Italian Canadians, I was the first one in my family born here. Everyone born in Italy and then moved to Canada at various kind of time periods. No one was a chef, but food was always ingrained in our family culture. Whether it was my grandfather, his garden was a backyard. Like his backyard was a garden. Like there was barely any grass. He had wine grapes and pears and tomatoes and green beans and on and on and on. So there's that, and then he would make his own sausage in the basement. That's like the deli, like what we now call charcuterie. Well, Italians were making that in cantinas long before. He made his own wine. He made his own bread. He made his own pasta. And I always just thought this is what everyone
Badass.
did, right? I literally just thought everyone did food this way, and it's just not the case at all.
No.
Not even a little bit. And so I had this interaction, this experience with food at a very young age, but I was also a very picky eater. So go figure, right? Like I was a super picky eater. Around
like the traditional foods, like around like so what you ate as a
sometimes,
kid?
Yeah, like so he would make me beautiful like fettuccine pomodoro with homemade tomato sauce from tomatoes from the garden and homemade fettuccine, right? So now that sounds just so beautiful. I wanted Chef Boyardee because everyone in the school ate Chef Boyardee. So I felt like why does everyone else get to eat this stuff and I don't get that opportunity? So it's little things like that made me a really picky eater. But
meanwhile, all of your friends are like, "Mom, why the fuck do we have to eat Chef Boyardee? Matt gets all this amazing stuff from his grandpa."
So it's a shame, but I think I was about 10 years old when I finally snapped out of it and really started to appreciate not just the meals and the food, but the process. My grandfather was I learned everything from him. He was my mentor, my hero, my babysitter, all the things, in life. And
what was his name?
He would always value his own self-worth, not in terms of like money in the bank or the value of his property, but it was like how much food he had access to. How able was he to feed his entire family? Like that was his gauge for worth, and I think these things are just intrinsically part of who I am now because I feel the exact same way, but with a new, 2022 spin on it, obviously. But you bring some of those old world kind of. I'm not. No, exactly. I'm trying to turn it into a business simultaneously, but I appreciate and respect those roots that I was raised on. So to answer your question, that's how I fell in love with food. I never went to culinary school. I never even thought of becoming a chef. I was in advertising. I was a writer. I was in the creative department. My job was to come up with ideas. But then I just said, you know what? I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was driven by being self-employed. Food was the only thing I understood. So I was like, well, got to sell some sandwiches. That's literally the process my brain did. Trying to open up a restaurant.
I'm curious real quick though. What did you call your grandpa?
No. So if you have Italian grandparents, it's no for your grandfather and nonna for your grandmother.
Mine was Poppy.
Poppy. There you go. Poppy. And like, listen, like I it's, without getting emotional, it's very hard to see the world move forward without having that anchor in that heritage and roots, which is why it's so important to bring whatever learnings or teachings we got from our grandparents. And I'm so lucky that I had so much time with mine, both just day to day, but also over the years, that I really do feel like the best of those worlds helped shape my life and my trajectory.
Oh, and he's probably still helping now.
Yeah, he passed away right before I opened my restaurant, which would have been like about 7 or 8 years ago. So he had seen me launch a food truck and he had seen me doing food events, but I was really only around I was only an entrepreneur for a few months, and he was I remember he was really concerned about my well-being around that time. He thought maybe I had lost my mind because you don't quit a job, right? You don't just quit a job to start your own thing. Like not in his world, at least. Like you don't do that. So and he knew I didn't have money. So it's like, you don't quit a job. You don't not have money. Like you just don't do these things.
But he's proud. I'm sure he's proud as shit now.
Well, I hope so, right? Like I do remember before he died. So he died in January. So in May of the year before, so maybe 5 or 6 months before he had passed away, he had actually come to see one of my events. Because trying to explain to him what I did for a living was very, very difficult. So I brought him with me to one of my events, and I remember, I am going to get emotional. I I remember seeing him just kind of off to the side. I was really worried about him the whole time because it was uncharacteristically hot that day here in Toronto for the time of year. So it was an oddity. So it was very hot that day, and I remember he was eating a sandwich and drinking a Perrier off to the side. And our booth had a huge lineup. Sorry.
You're good.
Anyways, the booth had a lot, and I remember just him cheering like he was at a hockey game or a soccer game. Like it was the coolest thing ever. And I'll never forget that. And my girlfriend, who is still my girlfriend, 11 years later, he's probably giving me shit that we haven't gotten married yet. But anyways, that's another thing.
Well, better him than her.
Right, yeah. So she's a photographer, and she was there, and she happened to capture a photo of him in that moment. And had that photo not existed, I don't know if I'd ever have the ability to recall that moment so viscerally. Yeah. But he's got the sandwich in hand. Like I'll never it's perfect. It's just perfect. So
dude, that's awesome.
It's a long. Thank you. Yeah, the long-winded story as to why I do what I do, but that's a huge reason why I do what I do.
Here's the Nona.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
Cool. So you started just doing events. So before the food truck, you're like, hey man.
Yeah. Pretty much like the word pop-up was just starting to become a thing, at least here. So
farmers markets?
I actually did a couple farmers markets. I literally would sell them anywhere. Like I would go into art spaces that didn't have, and I'd partner up with like breweries. I would do like events at breweries. I would do events at bars that didn't have kitchens. I would do like anything. I would do. So yes, I did farmers markets too, just not a lot.
Everything.
A farmers market. Like if there was a way to sell people a sandwich, I've tried to sell you a sandwich. Just because like I couldn't afford a space and I needed to make money because I just quit my job. So this was the way to do it.
Did you have more fun back in the day doing that?
Well,
do you miss it at all? I guess the excitement of getting it started. No.
Yeah, like I don't miss the very dangerous number of hours I was working in order to make this work. I don't miss that because it would be very normal for me to work 22 hours consecutively without taking a break or anything. Like that was just
damn normal. Man.
I know.
You selling sandwiches at the after hours bars too?
Well, so what I would do, no, I didn't even get there yet. So like literally what I had to do was because I couldn't afford a kitchen to work out of. So I would donate my time to a butcher shop during the day. So that way at night, they would let me use their kitchen for free to cook and prep for. So I would be working all day, then I'd be prepping all night. I'd get a couple hours sleep, and then I'd get up and then have to get ready for my event the whole next day. So I do miss events.
You worked it.
I did. I worked it, man. I drank a lot of coffee. And those events were so high energy. My energy, people's energy, it was awesome to be a part of that. So I really miss that side of it, but I don't miss
the hours.
The hours it took to get there. So I knew it was a temporary moment in time. Then when we got the food truck, still working ridiculous hours. And now we had a camera in front of my face too. So I was
so how did that happen? How did that happen? Were you just you're doing events, you're everywhere, people know about you, and someone in Toronto was like, hey, bud? Kind
of. So social media was really taking off at that time. Like we were talking about Twitter earlier. Like Twitter was like how people found out about these underground events that were happening. We were getting a lot of media. I was getting write-ups in national kind of media outlets because what I was doing was so different. So finally, a friend of mine sent an email to another friend saying, who was in television. They're like, you got to meet my friend Matt. He's doing some really crazy things. They were like, hey, Matt, nice to meet you. And I was like, yeah, they're like, so what do you do for a living? And I just sent them an email of what I do for a living. And they were like, well, that's a TV show. So we're going to try and pitch that. And that's literally how it happened. It's crazy because now, years later, I'm trying to get more TV in the works, and it's incredibly hard. And I take for granted how easy it was in that first go because we had something that was just so different, and it didn't need to be manipulated too much, but it was pretty much 90% there. it was just my life. Like follow, come see what we're doing. That was it.
And you thought you were working long hours before.
Right. Yeah. So this was all, all of this is happening at the same time, long hours of work. But
I had a producer tell me
yeah,
one day that, well, you have a choice, right? So you either keep doing what you do and you're the boss of your life, or you let them pick it up and you're theirs, right?
right.
They own you. You will be on the road for 9 months a year. You will,
Wow.
forget about it. And I'm like, touche. Well, I'll think
Right.
about it. Still thinking about it.
Oh, really? Eh? Well, listen, I think everything has the important thing with projects is they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you're going to do anything, you need to know where that end goal is, or else it's very hard to get motivated by the beginning. You can't just get excited about, like, the idea of things, like, because you need to
Right.
know what the end game is, right? You need to know at what point do you feel like you've satisfied that kind of feeling that you get from a project, that excitement level, because otherwise then it's just endless. And then it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Very easy to fall uninspired by something that just seems never ending.
And it's hard to put a finishing on it, because it's like your life, right? So like projects, yes, but then it's also your life. So sometimes when you're in the midst of things, it's hard to see where the end is, right? Like where is the finish line? What is the finish line? What is the finality of whatever this crazy idea that's come into my head is? And is there an end to it? Because you're, when you're starting with a new idea or a new project.
Sure.
And you just get excited about what the idea is. You're not like, oh, what is the end? Like, where would it end, right? So we're making.
And I think that's where I personally feel like that's something new I've introduced to my mindset is in those exciting new beginnings, you have to look at where is your end goal, and it might not even be defined, and it might change, and that's totally okay. But at least you have that it exists, right? Whereas Matt 10 years ago didn't even know an end was in sight or even was a thing. It was just take it and go. And I don't know how constructive that is. I don't know how people just burn out, and burnout is a very real thing. And I think that's easily a contribution to that.
Balance is key, right? And if we forget to maintain our balance, we go one way or the other, right? So you're overworked and you can't, you need a break, or you're not doing a whole lot of anything and you need to be productive, right? But we forget to just make sure to take the time for ourselves while we're doing other things. And I think when you have other people in your life, you need to take the time for them too, right?
Sure. Or else you're just by yourself all the time.
Right? And in doing so, that time can also be for yourself, right? As spending time with other people and doing things that are not business related are super important to maintaining your ability to be an entrepreneur, right? Because that way you don't burn out.
It's true.
Right? When your wife says...
It's so true. But then the irony is, for me, it's like I cook in my downtime too. So it's like I find it very relaxing to cook which is different than what I do every day. Even though I'm a chef and a food entrepreneur, not every day is just cooking. I love to just feed people.
Well, because you have a whole brand now, right? So what is your daily life like nowadays with...
Whoa, yeah. It's different. It's out there. So I mean, I recently, January, I sold my whole catering company, and
an end, a finish line.
That was a finish line. That was a finish line. And I'd been doing it for, like I said, 10, 11 years. I had, pretty much, there was a lot going on. I'm launching a new project, which is what consumes most of my day-to-day right now. So there's that. Then,
One door
Sorry?
closed, the other door opened.
Yeah, exactly. So that was already happening simultaneously. And then I've been for years building my own personal brand stuff that you were talking about, which allows me, Matt, the chef, the personality to get more work and doesn't necessarily require the same kind of operations that a food service business has. And I was getting a lot of approached a lot for consulting as well to kind of help bring my unique perspective to other locations without actually having to open them, which was a lot of fun. And then, like, you know, COVID obviously hit our industry in a very hard way. And Ontario, so Ontario is the province where Toronto is. It's a Canadian state, if you're not familiar, or whoever's watching isn't familiar with what Ontario is. So Toronto is inside Ontario, and we were very hard locked down, like very hard lockdown during COVID, and it really did impact small business. And I'm not here to make this political or anything, but what had happened was we saw things close and then we saw them open, and then we saw them close and then we saw them open, we saw them close, and this maybe happened 4 or 5 times throughout the 2-year. Yeah. So imagine every time you closed, you have to lay everybody off. You have food waste. So I'm donating all the food you can. You've lost all your business. That's it. 6 months later, you're reopening, rehiring, restaffing, retraining, and everything costs 3 times what it did before. This happened on repeat. So in December of 2021, when Omicron started to become a thing again, we went back into another lockdown. But people were freaking out here because the numbers were so high. And literally, it felt like March 2020 all over again.
All over again?
Good. All over again. So I had to lay off all my staff at Christmas. I had to, we lost like 40 grand worth of business in the day. Like it was tough. It was really tough. Now, like I said, I'm not here to like debate how I feel personally about it or anything, but this is what was happening, right? This was just life.
That's life. That's real life.
And there's a cause and effect. Things happen, and you can't assume that people are just going to go with it. So I was in Florida around after Christmas, and I took some time to think, and I was like, you know what? I'm good.
We're going to sell this thing.
Yeah, and that's what I did because I felt like I had achieved everything I needed to achieve in that time frame, in that moment. Like there was nothing else that I felt like I needed to accomplish as under the Fidel Gastro brand. Like I felt like it had reached its life cycle, and I was totally happy with it.
So do they still call it? Is it still Fidel Gastro?
No, that's mine. That's mine. No one else. And the other part about that was like I had personified that brand so much that no one else was going to take that on. It was literally just like breaking it down, moving the assets around, and getting other people.
You sold the operation.
Business relationship.
You sold the operation, not the name.
Exactly. So, and then it's really worked out for me because it's now freed up my time to work on other things. And I'm like so excited for the next year because this new project is in the food space, but it's not, it's more product driven versus food service driven. So it allows me to really, utilize all my skills.
Do you have a time when you can reveal?
Yeah, it's so close to being able to reveal it. I'm hoping. I can't right now only because I do have other partners and we have some like confidentiality
but
things.
Big things are coming.
Big things are coming, and I think if all goes well, by late May, that May 2-4 weekend I talked about, by late May, I should be at least able to talk about what we're working on.
Well, since we can't talk about that right now, let's talk about food.
Deal.
So your cookbooks, one, of course, you wrote the brunch one first, right?
No, the other way around. Street Food Diaries came first, and that was obviously all about being like a food truck personality and really trying to understand the idea of street food as a style of cooking. I think there was still a lot of I think it was published in 2013, 2014 maybe. So like street food really wasn't being used like the verbiage. The style of cuisine had been around forever. But like, I don't think as a verbiage, it was being understood as a legitimate style of food, especially here where most street food was like, it was like hot dogs, hot dog carts, stuff like that, right? So whereas you travel other parts of the world, that's predominantly how people interact with food, is these like the hawker stalls, the food stalls, the whatever it is, the markets,
the market malls,
like they're incredible, right? So that book was all about kind of bringing that style of cuisine, elevating it a bit to be more refined for a cookbook.
Did that come out of your travel? Were you traveling?
Yeah, we were traveling for the show.
Putting all the stuff that you ate together in your head and coming up with recipes.
Exactly, and then we tried to feature everyone in it as well, right? So we made a travel log as part of it, and then the brunch book for me was actually it's my preferred book out of the two. I love that brunch book mainly because at the time my restaurant Lisa Marie was a known brunch spot in the city of Toronto. Toronto's a huge brunch city. Pretty sure Savannah's a pretty big brunch city too, right?
Yeah, I think the whole world is kind of on the brunch train now.
Are we getting there? So, okay, good. Because brunch is amazing. I love brunch. It's one of my favorite meals.
It's not just for mimosas either, people.
No, right? Yeah, are you a Bloody Mary guy? Because I do
like a good Bloody Mary. Yeah.
So we have Bloody Caesars here. So we use clamato juice, which is like. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's like clam juice and tomato juice mixed together. It's very good. I love it. But I love brunch. It's really my favorite meal of the day. Not that I have it every day, but it's more of an event. And that's what I really tried to capture in that book, was that brunch was more than a meal. It was a culture. It was a community. People had brunch pants. They had their place, their habitual brunch spots. They had usually chances are if you went out for dinner, historically, you're more likely to try different things on a menu, whereas the brunch diner tends to get their thing. Like, this is my brunch thing, So I wrote a book about that, and it was a lot of fun. We got to travel to other brunch related cities as well, and really showcase, we went to Nashville, we went to New York, we went to Seattle, San Francisco. So we really got to feature a lot of other brunch spots and had a lot of fun putting it together. Because it was like, again, right?
You just got to go to brunches.
I just got to go out for brunch. That was it, that was really it. San Francisco really nailed it. That was like one of my favorite. I've been to San Fran before. But that was really like my favorite.
I can see them doing brunch
city.
Super well. Like, there's just so many tiny little adorable restaurants just all over San Francisco.
And they have access.
That's the first place I ever gave a homeless person money, was San Francisco.
Oh, really? Look at that. Notable. They also have access to incredible food, right? Like, they were doing like the farm to table kind of concept or movement, like
back in the 90s.
Way before anyone else thought it was trendy or cool.
Grilled cheese too, like grilled. Before grilled cheese trucks were everywhere. Mm-hmm.
But that's just it, though. Like, I think I think brunch is meant to, like, it shouldn't be overly complicated. I think brunch really does come down to, it's like, is it hearty? Is it make you feel good? You shouldn't have to eat anything else that day. It should be your only meal that day, and that's when you've had a really good brunch. And then, like, you talk about it to people, right? Like, I remember when like chicken and waffles became a thing here. Like, we were really behind as far as like food trends. Chicken and waffles has only been popular in Toronto for maybe like, I don't know, 12 years, 13 years. So I remember
I'm
there was
from Ohio, so we didn't chicken and waffle when I was growing up either. No, okay. Right? Like, no, it's a southern thing that just has recently moved itself north.
Okay, right. So I don't feel so bad then. So, I remember when I first found out about chicken and waffles in Toronto, and this little amazing, it was actually a southern style kind of smokehouse and larder in Toronto. And I remember going back, I was still working a job at the time. Like, I had a day job. So I remember going into work that Monday meeting being like, You guys, I had chicken and waffles for the first time, and everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, "No, chicken and waffles is the best thing ever." And then now, like fast forward to when I wrote Brunch Life. There's a whole chapter in the book dedicated to chicken and waffles. Yeah. So
I mean, I remember thinking it was weird too, like chicken and waffles.
I never thought it was weird. I thought it was beautiful because it's like you got the hot dough of the waffle. Which, let's be honest, waffles on their own, a little boring. So
they're a little boring,
a little boring, you know, little. So nothing says, hey, you know what makes that waffle really good? Some fried chicken. Mm-hmm. And I always love putting, real syrup. Canadian maple syrup over it. And we take our maple syrup super hardcore. But then I also love putting hot sauce over it as well. So you get a little bit of heat, a little bit of sweet, all in one bite. And then the waffle, like that cone shape at the bottom, just does such a perfect job
just
grabbing anything that's falling. Yeah. Butter. All this stuff, man.
You are serious about the chicken and waffle.
Oh, dude, I love
now I need chicken and waffles. God,
I remember being...
Do you chicken strip it, or do you like an actual
bone in breast? Yeah. What we'll do is whether it's if I was doing it, so at our restaurant we did actually Cornish hens and waffles, and we would just cut them in half and fry a Cornish hen, and we did it on a cornbread waffle. But whenever I do fried chicken and waffles, usually it's segmented parts of a whole chicken. So you get a whole chicken, you butcher it down. I do a buttermilk brine with a little bit of pickle juice overnight, and then the next day you do your dredge and you do your fry, and it's aces. I remember being in Miami, and I won't say the name of the restaurant, really well-known spot in Miami, and we were out to dinner with a bunch of people, and they had a fried chicken and waffle dish on the menu. So I ordered it for dinner, but I was like, to the server, I was like, it's maple syrup though, right? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, no. Like, I just want to be clear. It's not like butter syrup or table syrup. It came from a maple tree, right? Like, it's actually maple syrup.
Real maple syrup. The rich.
Let me tell you something.
The rich kind.
It was not. It was not. I don't know what it was. It was they put so much bourbon in it. It literally just felt like sweet bourbon. And I poured it all over the thing. I was just like, I ruined it.
Wrong.
Yeah, ruined it. Yeah.
We were raised on...
They couldn't believe. Yeah.
Even in Ohio, we were raised on real syrup. Like, my mother always had, like, the real syrup. Or we had, there was an arbory.
Oh, yeah,
around, and they had maple trees. And we as kids would go and learn how to, like, tap the trees. And make
fun.
Maple syrup.
So the sap water that you get from that process, because I know people in my life that do this every year when it's maple, like when it's time to actually start to make maple syrup from the sap from the trees. The maple water that you get is excellent for brining ribs, like excellent.
For ribs?
Oh, it's incredible.
Sweet, mapley, just like so. I can see that.
What it does is it gives the meat an actual natural sweetness to it instead of coating something in maple that just burns and caramelizes, which is nice, but really that sweetness is just that outer layer, right? But by brining it in the maple water, you're getting sweet.
You're almost
like subtle sweetness. Yeah, exactly, right? You get a nice subtle sweetness. So in every bite you take, just a little sweet finish. It's beautiful. Highly recommend.
I'm definitely going to try that. I would never. I don't know where I'm going to get maple water from, but.
Well, come on, do better. Come on,
not a lot of maple trees in Georgia. we have pine trees, oak trees, and palm trees. That's our staple.
And I love it. I love palm trees though. I see a palm tree. And I just get emotional because like I said, you got winter all the time here. You're getting close to a beach. You're getting close to some warmer weather. We do have very hot summers here, though. That's often a misconception. Like June, July, August, September. Here
humid too, right?
Out's very humid though. Yeah, very humid, very hot. But it's just winter.
Yeah. When I go back to Ohio in the summertime, it's just as humid as down here. Like, and
Oh yeah.
Savannah is miserable humid, but
Well, no, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Of course it
like
is.
but.
I was actually just in Sandusky. I was in Sandusky about a month ago.
Cedar Point.
So I was in your. No, I was there for a conference. So I was at the Culinary Vegetable Institute of America. I don't know if you've ever
Culinary
checked
vegetable.
this out. Culinary Vegetable Institute of America.
I have not.
Probably one of the greatest places I've ever been to in my life. And most of Sandusky doesn't even know it exists. It's so unfortunate. They are, oh, dude. Yeah, check it out next time you go home.
Culinary
Check out the
Institute
Culinary
of
Vegetable
Vegetables.
Institute. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's just like a huge, like, they're just
It's a
growing
farm.
vegetables
It's a massive
inside?
farm. Well, no, it's a produce farm that really sources some of the United States' like top restaurants. So the who's who of the U.S. of the food scene in the United States, they order their food.
That's where Per Se is getting their food, or
like, yeah, stuff like that. Like they really service a lot of like Chicago's restaurant scene. But it's unbelievable. And then they have an educational center kind of attached to this farm. So they have, over 150 years worth of data that they're just kind of reintegrating back into their farming principles. And they do their own honey, and they have an incredible team of chefs, and their executive chef is like unbelievable. And their head farmer, Farmer Lee, whose family owns the property, like they're just all so vital to the food system that we currently exist.
Are they trying to not reinvent, but like take us back to the way that, to the dirt? Is that their mission, to like
yes and no
make farming sustainable?
That is the mission. However, they've used very scientific process and evolution of how we interact with our farms to actually have longevity.
Right.
Because there are old school principles that aren't sustainable for just economic reasons today, right? So they're just very smart and calculated by how they've incorporated all of their systems together. And then on top of that,
they should get a lobby. They should get a lobby.
Yeah, right.
You know who doesn't have a lobby? Vegetables. Nobody lobbies for the vegetables. We lobby for the farmer, but not really the vegetables themselves. Meat
Who's
gets
the real hero?
Milk gets a lobbyist. Beef gets a lobbyist. You know who doesn't? Broccoli. Broccoli doesn't get a lobbyist.
Carrots.
It's BS, man.
No one's lobbying for lettuce.
Right?
That should be a shirt.
Kale.
Lobbying for lettuce.
I'm lobbying for kale because I care about you people. Okay.
But it's true, right? Like it was a beautiful space, and so next time you're back home visiting, check out the Culinary Vegetable Institute.
Oh, I'm definitely going to. At this, Cleveland's not just for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame people. There are vegetables happening too.
Vegetables to be had.
Vegetables to be had. Awesome, sir. Man, thank you so much for hanging out, dude.
This is my absolute pleasure. I love it because today we just chatted. Like there was no
that's what I do.
Higher narrative. It was really just talk about food, talk about stories, because that's probably how you fell in love with what you do for a living, and it's definitely how I fell in love with it. So I appreciate that approach.
We just hang out, man. Let's just get to know each other. Now we're friends.
We're
friends.
We're gonna go to Sandusky together.
Let's do it. Hey, we'll go to Cedar Point too. We'll ride a roller coaster.
I'm a screamer, just so you know. I scream.
I'm not holding on to anything, okay?
I'm not. Those videos on YouTube where someone just passes out from the sheer terror that they've experienced?
That's you?
That's me. That's me.
We'll stay off the blue streak then, because
it'll be a streak, that's for sure. There will be a streak. There will be a streak. Serious.
Awesome. You want to give any shout outs to anybody? Where should we check you out?
Mom, Dad, I love you. Is that what we mean? No.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, Mom and Dad. No, you know what? It's a big thank you to you for hosting today and having these kinds of amazing conversations with myself, but I'm sure you do this with a lot of people. So it's great to just be able to chat and have a good time. And yeah, if you've liked anything that I've said today, feel free to check me out on the socials. So everything is at Chef Matt Basile, Basile, otherwise known as Basil. But yeah, so check out my Instagram, TikTok, our website, chefmattbasile.com for recipes. And stay tuned for something really fun coming up in the world of food business.
Awesome, sir. Super big things coming from Matt Basile. Stay tuned. And yeah, totally go buy his books. Brunch Life. Like, you all love brunch. Go get a book. You can have your friends over for brunch and save money.
There you go. Available on Amazon. So check it out. Both Canada and US. So there you go.
Right. Link is in the description.
Whoa, look at us. We did that? You did that?
It will when it actually airs.
It will.
Yes.
Okay, understood. I'm like, right now? You just did that?
No,
like,
but
I'm
now
impressed.
thinking in hindsight, I wish that I had.
There we go. Well, check us out, folks. And like I said, we just try to have fun. So everything that is consumable that we do is just meant to be a fun time with food.
And make the world a tastier, funner place. One dish at a time.
Ding!
Ding. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Basile, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And I'm gonna come up and hang out in Toronto too.
Send me a note. We'll go have brunch. We'll have chicken and waffles.
Hell yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, ladies and gentlemen. Go watch my TV show. Cheers.